Today's video is going to be a little different in that we'll be visiting two locations along the north coast of New South Wales. During the Permian, there were large forests, rivers and swamps in this region of New South Wales. Nowadays, it is incredibly common to find petrified wood or fossilized leaves along the beaches and headlands between the Central Coast and Newcastle. Though there are a number of locations to choose from, I'm going to focus on two specific remnants of Permian forests that met with very different fates. Our first stop is located in Swansea. Before we delve into the fossil history of this location, this particular chunk of geology is what's known as Reed's Mistake Formation. It has been named this because in 1800, Captain Reed mistook this area for a reported coal-rich site which was actually a smidge further north in Newcastle. You've gotta love when your mistakes are immortalised in history. Now there's not much of this forest left, but what can be seen in the rocks here are tree stumps and trunks which all have an unmistakable westward lean to them. The rock type that these fossils are encased in is an incredibly thick ashfall. So what is thought to have happened here is that during the late Permian, a volcanic eruption occurred east of this location and a shockwave knocked these trees over and even snapped some in half, and this is why the fossils have their westward lean. The pyroclastic flow that followed the shockwave has then engulfed this entire area and settled on top of this forest and, well, probably whatever else didn't escape. This fast burial is what would have preserved these remnants of that forest, and uplift and erosion has exposed them here on this wave-cut platform and along the cliff faces. Our second stop is in Dudley, slightly further north of Swansea. Along certain stretches of the coast here, it is almost impossible to turn over a rock and not find a leaf fossil of some kind. But if you take a short walk along the beach, what's most impressive is this mishmash of branches and trunks that have been exposed on this wave-cut platform. It's an interesting example of Permian-aged fossils. Now the rock these fossils are encased in is a mix of sandstone and siltstone of some kind. This would likely indicate some kind of water system was responsible for depositing this debris. It is known that during the Permian this area would have had large river systems, swamps, estuaries, and many other waterways. What is thought to have happened here is that either a river burst its banks and flooded this stretch of the forest, creating debris that has settled here and been preserved through time, or there was some kind of erosion of the riverbanks and the trees have collapsed into the river and been swept away, settled and buried. Millions of years ago, rainforests were a very common sight across the southern continents. The fossil remnants of these forests have actually helped reconstruct the movements of the continents over time, with the same plant species being found across numerous continents that are pretty far removed from each other today. It is also incredibly fascinating to see a glimpse into how environments have changed over time. These two locations are only a couple of examples of the forests that existed during the Permian, and I hope you found them as cool and as fascinating as I do.